stay. Well, I got down on my knees and I pretend to pray. You know the preacher likes the cold. Well, I got down on my knees and I pretend to pray. You know the preacher likes the cold. He knows I'm gonna stay. California dreaming on such a winter's all the leaves are brown. California dreaming on such a winter's day. On such a winter's day. On such a winter's day.
Okay, yeah, I've been tinkering a little bit with this, keep trying to get closer and closer. I think it sounds pretty good. So, let's check out the mix. Okay, so drums, like lots of decapitator. It's really interesting with, especially 60s recordings, just how much distortion there is on stuff. As you know, people were just still using this kind of 50s equipment and stuff that had been trying to make kind of really hi-fi recordings and just driving it harder and harder to try and get more and more excitement out of the recordings, you know. And something like this, it is just so distorted. Everything's really distorted, and it's hard to kind of find the right kind of distortion with stuff. I always use decapitator because it's just really intuitive and easy to use. So the drums, they have a bit of decapitator, a lot of decapitator, boosting the tone and then cutting the top end off just to kind of crush that high end. Then boosting again a little bit of the top end, bringing it back a bit of compression, and then boosting the top end again. I don't know, but this is just what happens. The reverb for this song is cool because I have the impulse responses of the original studio where it was recorded, the echo chambers, Western Recorders, which then became Cello Studios. So yeah, I was able to use the same echo chamber sound as on the original. I also used a plate reverb for some of the things, the tambourine, plate reverb. Anyway, so the drums, they sound like this. So yeah, I mean, you really hear the echo chamber there, and you know, they don't sound crazy distorted, but they are quite distorted, and I could probably have gone even harder. It's really hard to tell with some of those old recordings because everything's kind of mushed together so much, partly because they were all playing live in the same room, but partly because everything was just really cranked to try and make it sound wild and exciting and, you know, like pop music did in the 60s. So then we move on to the tambourine. Has some plate reverb on it and decapitator, of course. This is the tambourine. Okay, bass was my Hofner Senator through Super Reverb, and then a little bit of low end harmonic stuff on the R bass. Take a bit of the top end off there, bit of compression, like a bit of bringing out a bit of attack, because it has this kind of twang thing, but it's quite a kind of moody, subby bass on this track, and reverb, which I've said it a few times, often overlooked on bass, but often very important on bass. I think is a bit of reverb just to glue it together, to add warmth to the whole sound world. So the bass sounds like this. Yeah, I was able to find an instrumental mix of this song, of the original, and I realised, I mean, I could hear there was a piano, this kind of spread piano chord, but on the instrumental I could just about hear that in the choruses there's this kind of like vampy, sort of like an acid house piano kind of thing going on. So I tried to do that. I think it makes it sound like the record, so I guess it must be close. That just has Decapitator on it, just brightening it a little bit because my piano is kind of quite moody and dark. Yeah, bit of drive, bit of brightness, bit of reverb. Sounds like this. I really like those little bring things. Onto the hissy stuff. Yeah, I put loads of tape hiss on these guitars because there's just so much on the original recording. It ended up being on the guitars for some reason, just because they start the song off, I guess. So the intro, as far as I can figure out, is a 6-string and a 12-string. And as I've said before, my 12-string got stolen 5 years ago by the bastards. So I had to make a 12-string using my Nashville strung guitar and my ordinary strung guitar, and tried to kind of make it a 12-string sort of sound. I also couldn't play the intro well enough. I could tell the fingering that he was using, but I couldn't do it. So I had to overdub this kind of sustained low note, because there's a ringing through note which really glues the intro together, and I wasn't getting it, so I had to just overdub this ringing through note, which is cheating, I know, but then, I mean, all of this is cheating, really, because I'm using a computer, you know. So the intro is made out of this. And then we add the 12-string, which, as you can see, is a Nashville and a normal acoustic, and we get this. And then I added a nylon string which comes in, and another Nashville, because after I did it I thought, man, this just it sounds a bit kind of safe, and it was just a bit sort of ploddy, and so I thought I'd just add a kind of vibe Nashville, also doing this kind of picking pattern in the verses. So basically all the guitars together sound like this. And on those guitars we have lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. On the first one, it's just a bit, I was just trying to get that kind of bottom end, that kind of plummy, I mean, I'm using a €200 Chinese Sigma guitar, which, I mean, it sounds great. I found a good one, but it doesn't sound like a 60s Gibson or whatever they were using. A little bit of a bottom end boost. Then I cut that out for some reason. I don't know. What was I doing here? Bit of distortion. Lots of my old pal Wow Control, like 13% on that, and just lots of colour and saturation and boosting the trim, compression, lots of reverb, echo chamber. That one is just that's the extra note, which I boosted a lot more bottom end, just trying to get that kind of big resonant thing. Similar sort of stuff here. Wanted it to sound like the same guitar. Okay, then the 12 string, which is made out of these two, Nashville and the normal one. Letting a bit more of the brightness here, boosting the brightness. Wanted it to be bright but not too bright, so you brighten it with the tone and then you cut the top end off and it just squashes that top end so it feels like it's bright but it isn't ever harsh, you know, and it sounds kind of 60s and whatever. Again, lots of colour on the wow control, like max colour, just to really squash that top end. Bit of compression, just to keep it under control. Same thing here on the other one, basically the same settings, so they sound like one guitar, so they react the same. The nylon, yeah, top end off, bit of distortion, a little bit of wow control, compression. The vibe, Nashville, same sort of thing. Yeah, it's all kind of the same. Less colour. I wanted this one to actually stick out a bit more, so I didn't shave off all the top end. Anyway, that's that. Enough of that hiss. So, the flutes. The flute I did with my mouth, but without a flute. And I did it by basically I used the pitch shifter. So on the first half of the solo, it's just normal. I just boosted the formant a little bit just to try and get it sounding a little sort of brighter somehow. But the second half, I boosted the pitch by an octave up and the formant by a little bit down, and I think it sounds pretty good. I'm quietly very proud of this mouth flute. The second half especially, I think it actually sounds like, I don't know, it sounds a bit more like a kind of, what are they called? Not ocarina, like one of these little mariners shell flute or something. But they both have a bit of auto-tune on just to try and make them sound a bit more solid. Some weird EQ here, pitch shifter, and some pretty hard compression. Same sort of thing on the high one, except it has a radiator at the end just to boost that top end a bit. And the flutes sound like this. So there you go, flute. And then we have the vocal. There's one bit in the song where there is this lead vocal thing, which I just sang, and then I comped together from 2 or 3 different takes, and it sounds like this.
Stopped into a church, I passed along the way. Well, I got down on my knees and I pretend to pray. You know the preacher likes the cold, he knows I'm gonna stay.
Yeah, and that just has a bit of decapitator on to actually kind of take the top end down even. It's not super bright on the recording. And then M-Juck, which I kind of have a love-hate relationship with, but sometimes it's great, and I think on this it just did the trick. It's just super squishy. I put a slow attack to kind of keep the transients going and quick recovery. But the reason I started liking M-Juck was because I found this like hidden panel at the bottom where you can kind of darken it and brighten it, and you can drive it, and there's a side chain thing on it, and so it actually makes it really versatile. And yeah, M-Juck, I thought it was cool. And the same with the mamas and papas vocals, like the backing stuff. That's just got a bit of decapitator. These are the girls, kind of brightening them a bit, and then letting a lot of the top end through, driving them a bit. M-Juck again, nice and squishy, and then a Pultec EQ, brightening again and then cutting again. It just didn't have that kind of the right sort of top end resonance, and probably still doesn't, but it's a lot better than it was. So I did that to both the boys and the girls' vocals. A similar kind of treatment on both. A bit of delay and a bit of reverb, echo chamber. So yeah, let's just go through the song and I'll show you these vocals.
All the leaves are brown, all the leaves are brown, and the sky is grey, and the sky is grey. I've been for a walk, on a winter's day, on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm, I'd be safe and warm, if I was in LA, if I was in LA. California dreaming, California dreaming, on such a winter's day. Stopped into a church, I passed along the way. Well, I got down on my knees, and I pretend to pray. I pretend to pray. You know the preacher likes the cold. He knows I'm gonna stay. Knows I'm gonna stay. California dreaming, California dreaming, on such a winter's day. California dreaming, California dreaming, on such a winter's day. California dreaming, on such a winter's day. California dreaming, on such a winter's day.
So there you go. That was that. Quite pleased with that, really. The master bus on this was very important in getting the overall sort of 60s kind of sound, or the sound of this record, or my best effort to try and recreate it. So there's some soft tube tape, which is boosting a bit of top end, adding a bit of tape character to it. Then we have an EQ, Pultec, which boosting that top end, cutting the top end, boosting the bottom end a little bit, just to make it a bit fatter sounding. Lots of wow control, like saturating a lot, boosting the input, 7.5 IPS. I don't know what speed they were recording at, but to me this just sounded just the right kind of crustiness. And then just my little limiter, which I like to use. So yeah, there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. Please subscribe to my channel, share it around. I've got a new album coming out, a robot album. It's called Wedding Address, and it's coming out in September. But I'm doing a pre-order for the vinyl. Head to my website and pre-order a copy. And while you're there, you could buy a copy of one of my other two albums, Vegetable and 33.3 Recurring. They're all for sale on my website right now. If you want to get the stems for this, then head to my Patreon. It's all there. The mixes are there too. Yeah, please subscribe, share it around, buy my records, order my new record. All good. Lots of love, and I will see you next time. Look after each other.